Today's episode, we're going to talk about what is beauty, and specifically, we'll be focusing on architectural beauty and what makes a building either beautiful or ugly. And this perspective could be applied to many other domains, such as art and music. So this episode was heavily inspired by an article I read on the topic from the School of Life. It didn't state the author or the date it was posted, but the link will be in the description. Obviously, beauty can be very subjective, but there are at least common patterns we can observe where most people would consider something beautiful or not. And remember, this is just one interpretation. I'm sure there are many other ways to try and measure beauty in things. But right off the bat, the article states that beauty equals order and complexity. What does this mean? This means that for a building to be considered beautiful, it must be both very ordered and very complex. So the article gives several examples to illustrate the points that we'll be looking at right now. And we're going to look at, this is an image of the Palace of Versailles. Joseph, can you describe what we're looking at?
It's like the White House, but in another country. And in the front, it looks like the...
Such an American way to describe something.
And you know what's another American
like
thing? Fucking Disneyland in the front, you know, like the Mickey Mouse.
The White House in France.
And Christmas trees in the front yard with a fountain where people put coins in, presumably for good luck and wishes. Yo, you could just swap out that with White House and it's the same thing. Literally the same thing.
I don't know if they look that similar.
Beat for beat. Beat for beat.
All right.
Joseph in the Joseph, don't listen, Chris. Joseph in the edit, overlay the White House over this picture that Chris is showing right here, just show how very similar it is.
Okay. What do you, in terms of order and complexity, what do you notice here though?
What does order mean? Like, how are they defining
order? Means
order?
It has. Great question. It means it has kind of like structured patterns and kind of predictable, like visual trends to it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So you can see there's a lot of order and that there's, it's patterned.
This picture specifically is very symmetrical. Like you could probably cut it down in the middle and it's almost like you could flip it. And it's pretty much a composite. The repetition you see are the trees, both in the foreground and the background. And even like the building structure itself has sort of like this, I want to say like ovalish design that's sort of both on the bottom and the top part of the building. You see sort of repeated throughout in this picture.
There's that designer I know. There he is.
There's not fucking poo-pooing.
It looks like looks like the White House. Is that America?
The duplicity of man.
So yes, there's a lot of order in this building and there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of detail and it's not just one pattern copied and pasted over and over and over. If you like zoom in on it, there's a lot of detail in it as well. So you can kind of look at it for a long time and pick up new things. What does it look like when there's a lot of order, but very little complexity? Okay, so can you describe what we see here?
Chris is showing me 3 pictures, all of which are buildings. The top picture looks sort of like a rectangular, looks like maybe an apartment building. Bottom and left one looks sort of similar a little bit in terms of like the line usage, and the bottom right is like a glass building, looks like, with the repeating patterns like this rectangle.
So all of these have a lot of order. There's a lot of patterns. There's a lot of copying and pasting. Not a lot of complexity. It's one pattern over and over and over, just copying and pasting over and over.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
So you probably wouldn't consider these beautiful buildings, would you?
It's like squarish rectangle, yeah.
They're just kind of plain and dull,
Just like me, man.
While these buildings may be nice and even easy on the eyes, you're great, Joseph, I doubt many people would consider them beautiful. These are the kind of buildings that are likely to get ignored as you're walking through a city.
Because they're not that interesting.
They're just not that interesting. Or you can,
they just sort of blend in the
if
background.
you look at it, you can glean all of the information from it by looking at it for like 5 seconds. You look at it for 5 seconds, you're like, all right, I've looked at the entire building. There's nothing new here.
Is that how people see me? Shit. Fuck.
That's like my life. Yeah, shut up.
Like a movie. Like a movie.
I'm like, man, I'm like a boring building.
Yo,
I'm like a
like a
man, my
moving. Like a
personality is like an
movie.
airplane movie. What does it look like when there's a lot of complexity but very little order? What are we looking at here?
Chaos is what we're looking at. We're looking at 3
Chaos.
pictures, all of which are like, I assume, urban environments. It looks like an American town in the top with skyscrapers, some smaller buildings, and people and cars on the bottom. On the bottom left, I'm thinking Japan because you have these narrow route, and the bottom right looks like, I want to say, a European city. I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say Sweden, maybe, because based on like the tops of the buildings. But they're all, a lot's going on in each one of these pictures. A lot of people, places, and things. Nouns, a lot of nouns.
Mm-hmm. So here we see a lot of complexity. There's a lot to look at. There's a lot of information taken, but there's very little order to it. There's almost no like patterns that you can kind of discern. It comes off as messy and cluttered. Most people wouldn't consider these scenes quote unquote beautiful.
Some might find it comforting or disorienting, depending on where you grew up. Because I find a lot of comfort in this chaos. Because I'm a big city boy. BCB.
Yeah. You fucking idiot. BCB's in the house. So why do we dislike either boring or chaotic places? So our brains are constantly looking for patterns in what we see. It's a way for our brain to take shortcuts, also known as heuristics, and it helps our brain process information more efficiently. When there's a certain level of predictability, our brain can process more efficiently. But if something is too simple and basic and has too much predictability, we might lose interest because it's kind of dull and tedious. So that's why nobody finds like bubble wrap interesting to look at, because it's tedious, it's simple, it's basic. Yes, it's very orderly, but there's nothing interesting to look at. Once you've looked at it for a second, you've gathered all of the information from it.
Okay.
Bubble wrap is all order, no complexity.
Shit,
whereas imagine a drawer
words.
full of jumbled wires.
Oh,
That's all complexity, no order.
I was moonlighting as my friend's band's manager one time. There's more story to that, but we had gotten interest in getting signed to a label. So like, this was a guy we met at an outdoor show, and we went to his house. This jumble of mess here I see reminded me almost immediately his house. It was like so messy, and it was just like, what are we doing here? It's like I was just like, there's something about
You were
this that feels
questioning.
really off. It was questioning it. It's like, oh, man, you couldn't clean up, bro, before you brought people over. Yeah. So there's something like turning you off from the idea. Like it gives you like a bad impression when you see like a mess, this chaos and complexity. At least that's at least for me in that moment. Yeah.
And you're like, I'm gonna stick to my day job. Good luck on tour. We'll still hang out on the weekends. So this jumble of wires, it's all chaos, all complexity, no order. So there's a midpoint between these two concepts that need to be balanced in order to create beauty. So there's a midpoint between too little order and too much order, and we want the middle of that. And there's a midpoint between chaos and boring, and that midpoint makes it interesting. And this article provides a piece of art that would fit squarely in the middle of each of these scales.
How would you describe this? I can't even describe this. Like
try.
2 quarter circles on the both parts looks like fan folds, maybe. And then there's like a square-ish portrait. Looks like it could be, I forget what the word is when you hang up a rug as an art piece. But it has like this like tapestry, and it has like a pattern to it. I guess I could see the order, right? There's repeating patterns, but there's a lot of complexity because there's different types of shapes. There's a lot of texture within the shapes as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So at first, the pattern is obvious. There's a square with curves on each side. But as you look closer, you see that there's a lot more detail and information than you first thought.
Mm,
And the
mm.
patterns become more complex. So, and even though it's complicated, there's a structure to it that makes it easier to decipher. There's a certain level of predictability with it. Our brains are moving between different patterns, feeling bored for a second, but then it discovers a new pattern, making it interesting to look at for an
Mm-hmm.
extended period of time. And it keeps doing this.
Yeah.
So it's not boring and it's not confusing. In the same way, a story or a game is interesting when it's complicated enough for your brain to keep on trying to work out what's happening, but it's ordered enough so you feel like you can make sense of it. It's not too complicated, but it's not too simple either. This makes it interesting. Our brains respond the same way to architecture. So compare these two images.
Okay. I'm seeing two pictures here. I want to say the top one has a very interesting type of building. I don't know how to describe it. It's like it has like arches on the bottom, I guess, and then the top part is not like a rectangle, but it's like a circular shape, kind of like a roundish triangle with different ripples in it. And there's like 7 of them in a row, but they're all different types of colors, different types, similar structure, but the shapes are slightly different. And the bottom is just like a tall rectangle building.
That's kind of boring, right?
Yeah, not as complex or interesting.
Yeah. So on the top side, there's like a row of colorful houses. This is a small town in the Czech Republic. And the houses are like seemingly pretty similar, yet different in some significant ways that give it
Mm-hmm.
many different patterns for us to decipher. It's both ordered and complex. Compared to the other photo, which is a London street photo, there's a lot of order,
London.
but it's pretty boring. Once you've picked up on a few patterns, there's not much else to glean from viewing it.
Oh, Chris is coming for you, London.
Yeah,
I'm
come at me.
British,
Your
Joseph. I'm
streets are
half
boring.
British, Joseph. Half British, Joseph. I can
I
say
am.
whatever I want about my home
I
country.
can say that. I can say that, motherfucker. So to sum up, we find beauty in things that are both ordered and complex, but just the right amount of order and just the right amount of complexity. Joseph, what do you think about that?
It's pretty sick. Pretty sick.
All right. Thanks, Joseph. we're glad
How am I
we're
supposed to
glad
fucking
you're
respond
here.
to that? Yo, Joseph, I'm gonna drop some fucking knowledge on you. I just need you to fucking respond to that with something even more insightful. The fuck I was supposed to respond to that?
Well, you could disagree. What do you think? What do you think makes something beautiful?
Yo, dude, I just look in the mirror. Second time I did that joke, dude. You
All
look out
right,
for a
moving
third time
on.
towards the end
All
of the
right.
episode.
All right. But why are we drawn to order and complexity in the first place?
Ooh, this is the psychology part of the episode?
Oh, yeah. So there's this little something called prospect and refuge theory. Drawing a bit on some of my own research I've conducted in grad school, where we were interested in what makes an environment inspire awe and wonder. So a bleak suburban street might not inspire awe, but a view from the Grand Canyon inspires awe and wonder. Why? So there's an idea called prospect and refuge theory. It comes from environmental psychology and draws upon a bit of evolutionary psychology as well. It suggests that humans have an innate preference for environments that offer both opportunities for exploration and observation, that's the prospect, and places for shelter and safety, that's the refuge. This was proposed by geographer J. Appleton in 1975, and it's based on the idea that these preferences are rooted in evolutionary history, where being able to see without being seen was advantageous for survival. An example of such an environment could be an elevated shelter with one side protected, like a mountain wall, and an easy view of the surrounding area to identify environmental opportunities and approaching predators. So these are two examples of kind of natural landscapes that most people would probably find beautiful and probably
Mm-hmm.
inspire a lot of awe and wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And how would you fit kind of the prospect and refuge theory into these photos?
Fuck, am I getting quizzed, Professor Cole?
You just spaced out for the last 2 minutes, didn't you?
I did. My bad. Help me. I didn't know I was gonna get a pop quiz during the podcast. Yo, the psych papers pop quiz. Joseph, were you listening?
Yo, if my co-host can't pay attention, cut the. Man. All right, well,
God,
I'll
dude.
explain it. Okay.
Fucking caught me red-handed.
So-
Jesus Christ.
Yo, I've taught remotely, dude. I can see when eyes are glazing. All right.
How much do I cut? Joseph at the end decide how much you need to cut to make me look less stupid.
Okay, I'll explain it.
Thank
These
you.
two images align with Prospect and Refuge because they both offer areas where you can explore and observe things from a place of shelter and safety. So there are many of opportunities to explore, to forage for food, look for like animals to hunt. Really, this is evolutionary psychology kind of shit.
Okay.
There's a lot of places to explore, but there's also a lot of like hiding spots, and there's probably a lot of places for shelter. So these views are very appealing to us. They also feature a lot of blue, a lot of water. This is also appealing to us kind of as humans.
So wait, it's because of the naturalistic part of it that makes it appealing to us?
Mm-hmm. The Prospect and Refuge. So the ability to explore and observe while from safety. So in modern context, this theory is used to explain why certain landscapes and architectural designs are more appealing than others. So if you go back to order and complexity, you listening? Order provides a sense of predictability and safety, whereas the complexity provides opportunities for exploration.
If you have to meet the middle, because if it's too orderly, it's too easy, and if it's too complex, it's too hard.
Then it's like chaotic. It would be like the Amazon jungle.
Yeah.
Where you can't make sense of any of it. People might prefer spaces with open views, natural light, and areas for retreat and privacy. So the Prospect and Refuge theory is frequently applied to fields such as urban planning, architecture, and landscape design to create environments that are both aesthetically pleasing and psychologically comforting.
So like large grassy areas, or like rose gardens, or like
Yes, but not just a large grassy area. Like imagine like a park that you really like. It's not just a big open field. It's probably a big open field plus some like large trees, some benches, some like a little picnic bench with like a pavilion, some areas of refuge.
Yeah,
that you
old
can
man,
like, quote unquote take shelter at.
Old men playing chess. Someone feeding the pigeons corn.
Yep.
A cat.
So to sum up, beauty equals order and complexity.
Okay.
And an attractive landscape, an attractive landscape equals prospect and refuge. I want you to just understand the decision-making process for me is tough. And I go through like so many different like topics that I'm like, well, like what would make an interesting episode? And sometimes I have like a couple ideas going at once. So I have like 3 like half-written scripts and like a couple other like mini like research projects that I have going on that I'm like I'm not sure if these will be interesting. I'll like keep them on the back burner. Okay. So today's episode was on what is beauty, right?
Yeah.
I just want you to know what the other option was going to be. If it wasn't going to be this, it would have been can you just read this out for me?
Sure. An analysis of a Pornhub comments. An analysis of Pornhub comments.
This is what I go through. This is the duality of psych papers, okay?
Oh, I wish you did.
Oh, it's coming.
Everyone,
I have the data set. I have half of it analyzed.
Coming soon. This is a teaser.
Coming soon.
This is a teaser.
I just want you to know. I want This is what Psych Papers is. I want us to have episodes on like what is beauty, architectural and natural beauty, and then also what's up with these Pornhub comments, yo? And then doing like a natural analysis of like how do people talk? Because it's one of those weird. It's kind of a social media website, but it's like nobody wants other people to be able to identify who they are.
Yeah.
So
who has the
commenting
time?
Behaviors are so different.
Who has it?
So I found a big data set.
Oh,
Stay tuned for
no.
the next episode.
Stay tuned. What is beauty? What is beauty? And what the fuck are they saying in Pornhub? What these motherfuckers talking about?
Pornhub comments.